What is up, guys? It is your boy Royal Mech, and today I actually have a one of my recent builds for Chronojet Dragon post festival collection. This build's actually been doing really good, and I've been really excited to share it off with everybody. So I am going to go ahead and get this all shown to you. By the way, I hope you guys are enjoying the new videos for the Card Fight Fridays. I'm definitely trying to up the game of the videos. Right now, we are working on getting a better mount, which actually we're testing today with this deck list. So we're going to go ahead and get it started. So for Chronojet, we keep the normal ride line all the way through Dran, Mazer Gear, Smoke Gear, and Chronojet. You know how it goes. You know how it is. Chrono Dran. The on ride, if you go second, draw a card. Mazer Gear. When you ride on top of Chronojet, when you draw on top of Chrono Dran, draw a card, and then activate your crest. Then with Smoke Gear, when rode on by a grade 3 Chronojet, Soul Blast 1, search your deck for grade 3s. Those are all amazing, and you guys know, because we are now in the Z format, we do need to have the energy crest generator as well for when we ride our grade 1. So this is the right deck. Nothing really major there. We're going to go into the grade 3s first. This is where some of my major changes have happened. First up, I do play only 2 copies of Chronojet Dragon in the main deck. For those of you who don't know, he has the GB2 skill. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, this unit gains plus 5k, and your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater units from their hand to guard. Now, this primarily is referring to solely PGs, but because we have order cards, Sanctitude is still viable here, but everything else you really can't guard here. Then it has the On Stride ability, which we don't normally use, where you can counterblast 1 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and put them to the bottom of your deck. That's really good for helping with board control, but once again, we don't really use that skill overall. Then I run 2 copies of the Soul Funeral Dragon Nocturcio. Now, he has one of his abilities is why we mainly run this card. He's the main grade 3 we search off of our Smoke Gear, because he has the ability when discarded for either Stride or discarded for riding a grade 3 from the ride deck, you get to draw a card. So this keeps our resources going and always running off straight. Now, he does have the ability on play when you have a grade 4 Vanguard, or you reveal a grade 4 unit from hand. You may counterblast 1 to do one of 2 things. First one is draw a card, and when it's called to rearguard, you can counterblast 1, draw a card, and then choose 2 cards from your trash to add to your soul. Really good skill when you don't have really anything in soul and your opponent keeps starving you of soul from being able to keep recharging. But then he has the ability in the defensive end, if you have a grade 4 Vanguard, this gains 15k shield. So that's part of the reason why we've actually lowered the amount of this card, because you really only need it for the striding cost, and it's really easy to find now because of how much draw this deck actually has. Now, last but not least, in my grade 3 lineup, I run 2 copies of Footprint Marking Passage of Time. Now, this is the promo that came out a few months back that is solely for the Chronojet deck. It has one ability. You can when you activate it on your turn, you can counterblast 1, choose a rear guard from your hand or from your soul, put it to the bottom of your deck and call a unit that is 1 grade higher. It can then activate its skills as if it was in Generation Break. Really good card. This definitely helps you use those grade 1s in your soul or on your board that have already used up their main skill, to start getting those upstream dragons on board to create some pressure during your turn if you're going second, as well as searching for any other grade 2 in the deck, which we do run another one. Not the one you think, but you'll see what I mean. That helps. This also has the second ability that if you discard this for Stride, you may choose one of your vanguards gain the ability of their cost is counterblast cost reduced by 1. Now, what that means is if I were to discard this for Stride, this allows me to use Chronojet, or from my Stride zone, this allows me to make Fate Rider Dragon a free skill. So a lot of times I primarily use it here on Chronojet, so I can put a tuck away to then just use up the counterblast here, unless I have to use something else for counterblast, which there really isn't a lot here, to keep my skills going strong. So that is primarily why we use this, and it is really strong. And I greatly appreciate this card. This was one of the best things we ever got, and it helps our grade 2 games so much. Now on to grade 2s. So first up, we run 3 copies of our energy cycler, Tizkar. She has the ability on Guardian Circle, or when you discard for riding, you can counterblast 1 or energy blast 3 to draw a card. Really good skill. We enjoy this skill. Then she also has the ability on play during a time you persona ride, you can counterblast 1 or energy blast 3. This soul charge 1, and then this unit gets plus 5k and boost. Now we normally don't use that skill here because we don't persona ride. But her being an additional defensive extender is the main reason she is played in this deck. On to one of the traditional grade 2s. We play 3 copies of Upstream Dragon. Primary reason we dropped the Upstream by 1 is to actually make more room for some of our units. And because of how much draw this deck has in now, we don't need actually as many as you originally thought we did. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, he has the Generation Break 1 skill that when this attacks Vanguard, it may gain 5k power. If it does, at the end of that battle, it goes to the bottom. It may go to the bottom of the deck, and I can superior call a grade 1 from deck to an open back row rearguard circle. This is really good because with other cards in this deck, this just extends attack pressure, especially early game, because attacking for 15 on your opponent's 10k when you use the order, or on their 13s as one of your first attacks that they kind of have to low guard stop, just gets better, and it creates resources on your board for searching things, stuff as our baby girl Gigi, as well as some of our other new cards in the deck that actually help with this card's mechanic. Now, last but not least, we are running 3 copies of the Gear Goat of Acupuncturing Leaping. Now, this card is another promo we got, but we got this as a box topper on for Fated Clash. It has probably some of the funnest abilities with Chronojet and with Gear Dragons as a whole, because you actually can play this with the other Gear Dragon deck in Dark States. But this has the ability, when the unit attacks and you have a Gear Dragon Vanguard, which you always do, you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 5k until the end of that battle. Now, at the end of the battle, you may put this to the bottom of your deck. At the end of the battle, this attack, and you have a Gear Dragon, which you will always have, because if you call that grade 3, you have Chronojet. If you call it at grade 2, you have we also have Smoke Gear. If it gets called out on grade 2, you have Smoke Gear. So you will always be at a Gear Dragon. Even our grade 4 strides are Gear Dragons. So you will always meet that requirement. You can Energy Blast 3, put this card to the bottom of your deck, then choose a card from your opponent's rearguard circle, your rearguard circle, or your bind zone, and put it to the bottom of your deck. Correction, my apologies. I overextended. It's your rearguard circle or your bind zone. Put them to the bottom of the deck and then draw 1 card. Why this is so good? This helps that grade 2 rush turn so much. I have had so many games with this card alone where I played a Gigi, and then you with this in the same column, they went ahead, did their 18k swing, and then returned both those cards to deck, meaning I didn't lose resources of GG's from upstreams. This card just does so much work on the defensive end. It definitely helps as well as keeping your board empty for those decks that like to respond on the back end to clear your board after you've pressured. So really great card. I can see you running it only at 2 because it is sort of a niche situation, but 3 gives that right amount to see. And with decks now like Sojo Doji coming out, this actually is helpful because you can clear your board, which means they can't touch your stuff. And then on your turn again, you come back out with more pressure. On to the grade 1s. My fun, another part of just generic stuff first. We run 3 PGs and 1 Sanctitude. We always will run the Arlem in this deck because she belongs with Chronojet. She's actually Chronojet and John's babysitter. For you guys who know the Gear Chronicle lore, just really good. Sanctitude, you should always run a Sanctitude. This deck has to run the original because it runs 2 crests. Now, if this deck didn't have to run the energy crest, you could possibly run the no, you actually couldn't because you have to. This is the only one this deck can run because the other one requires you to only be running the energy crest, and that's more suited for the Z decks compared to this one. Next up, we run one of the newest cards to the family, 4 copies of Clockwise. Now, Clockwise is one of the grade 1 dragons that came out of Festival Collection. It has 2 abilities. The first one is when this unit is played on Rearguard Circle, if your Vanguard is of equal level or less than your opponent's, Soul Charge 1, and this unit gains plus 2k. Why that is so good is because it allows for that early rush game, but this card is more overall beneficial. And here is why. It has the secondary ability that you can Energy Blast 3 if this is in your drop zone, and when you discard a card, remove this card from your drop, and you can grab that card, you discard it back. Why this is so important is because this allows you to extend your discards on stuff like your next stages, as well as if you have to discard a card for ride that you don't want to get rid of, you can use it, then bring it straight back to your hand off of his skill for 3 energy. I have not had a regret playing this card whatsoever. This also is a really great card to use as one of your ride fodders, and you could possibly drop it down to 3, but 4 just feels really comfortable. After that, we do also only play 3 copies of Gigi. Reason being, you can search her, and we now are having ways of recurring her from board back to deck. So there's not really the need to run her at 4, and you really don't want to just always see her in hand and brick it off. She does have the ability when she is played. If you have a Chronojet Dragon Crest, you may, when played Soul Blast 2, draw a card. If she was played from the deck by an ability, you then gain plus 5. So early game, she's just a draw engine, but late game, as you start doing your combos, she does become a 13k booster, which is really helpful in the long run for this deck. And she is one of the main targets I always want to push back in the deck with the Leaping Gear Goat. After her, now that the ban list has released him, we play 3 copies of Swirler. I am so glad this card is back. This gives you a 1-card attacker on your stride turns. It is just bonkers. It has the ability on place, Soul Charge 1. Then it has the other ability, if a card is put into Soul by the Soul Charge ability, and you have a grade 3 Vanguard, this card gains plus 5k until the end of turn for each time you Soul Charge. So that also means if you were to say Soul Charge 2, you gain 2k. You gain 2 triggers of the power gain instead of just 1 trigger. Why this card is was so impactful is because this gave you a attacker on one card as well as generating soul. So a 13k is enough to hit a Vanguard with great ease. And being that this deck recurs units and switches them out for units of a higher grade, being able to turn a 13 attacker grade 1 into a grade 2 that can still keep hitting is just wonderful. And these can stack on top of each other. If you end up seeing like 2 or 3 of these at one time, you could literally leave one in the back row as a booster, drop the other ones up front, and just go bonkers. Love this card. Glad it's back. 3 is really the only amount I could see running this. Running more than 3 is just excessive, and it gets in the way of you actually making decent plays. Next up, we do play 2 copies of Steam Breath. He is just the stride fodder, as well as he's your way of searching Chronojet from the deck outside of burning your smoke gear search for this in hand. Now, I was originally running this at 3, but with the help of my friend Wayne and my friend Joseph, who are part of going to be a part of a lot of the videos you guys see, playing with me, this really has lost a lot of its need to be heavy in the deck because we do draw so much. So 2 is really the best number for this card. I don't think you would need to play it anymore. If you did, you could possibly cut away clockwise to replace for a third one, but I don't see going past 2. We got 2 more cards left. After one more card after this for the grade 1s. We got Zargon at 2. This card is still bonkers in Jet. This gives you that heavy boosted pressure. When you boost with this card, you give your Vanguard or the card it boosts the ability of on hit, choose 2 cards from your trash, add them to soul. This is really good because it gives you a way of charging your soul to being able to reuse skills such as your GG, using the power skill of your leaping gear go, and just being able to use your skills without feeling any kind of concern. I did at one time want to play it at 3, but the spaces started getting really tight that I really have only needed 2, and I've always seen it, especially with the heavy draw this deck now provides. And then last but not least for the grade 1s, we won 1 copy of the Amethyst Cat. It has the ability on play on your rearguard circle. You can choose 2 of your units from the ride deck, from your soul or your trash, and put them back to ride deck face up to countercharge 1, or you can use it in the guardian circle, pay the same cost, and it becomes a 20k guard. Really still appreciate this card in the deck. It's just another form of defensive as well as resource management, because there are times I call this off of an upstream just to make sure I have my counterblast back to do a skill on the next turn. Now, next up, we'll go into the grade 0s. We play 8 crit, 4 of them being the effect crit, 4 of them being just a vanilla crit. Now, here, I do play the effect crit because it helps with soul gain, as well as this extends power on my attack turns. Now, do I always do it for that? No, but it just gives an additional attack pressure for the deck, because you could use this as a very light light booster, and then on the back end, that additional 2k gets to go to someone else. Then we also play 3 front triggers. Right now, you attack once, call something, and recur your front row. So running front triggers is just really strong and stable, and it's probably one of the highest guard abilities of the game. Then we play 4 heal triggers. Just because 4 heals is 4 heals, I chose this one because we are playing Gear Chronicle. So let's try to keep the aesthetic as much as possible, right? And then for the OT, we run red. Now, originally, I was running the purple OT. But one of my good friends did make a very strong point that why run that and try to bank on it when if you do this during your stride turn, they have to extra guard. Being able to choose one of your rear guards to give it a restand ability is just really fun, and it's really pressuring, especially with how big some of my columns can get early game, as well as how big they can get later in the game. And it just helps so much, especially when you see this and you're about done with your attack columns, because you give this to the last attack of your cycle, and it just gets to keep pressuring. So this is still like that flex spot. You can choose any trick OT you want to put here. I put red. Another good one here would be the purple OT. Blue OT is really good here as well. Yellow is not actually worth it. Primarily because you don't really control their board enough to really value it, and it doesn't really benefit you as much with how this deck's game plan is. So red honestly is what I say is now the new #1 pick for Jet. #2 is really tough between purple and the Nation OT, and then blue fits in there. It's like it's a fight for second between blue, Nation, and the purple. Now, last but not least, we will go into the G Zone. You guys pretty much know this G Zone by heart because we have no new G Zones to stride with. So first up, the big daddy of the deck is 4 copies of the Fate Rider Dragon. He has the when attacking ability. And guys, don't forget this part, because I do forget it every once in a while, that when you win this attack, you counterblast 1, flip a G, and then you choose a unit on your board, bottom deck it, and call a unit a grade higher. This is not the part you won't forget often. Then after you call the unit, you choose one of your units and give them +5 times the number of face-up cards in your G Zone. This is the part I have honestly sometimes forgotten about, and it's actually hurt me. It gains power to any unit. It's not just, oh, it has to be the one you called. Normally, that's where you will give it if it doesn't have a booster, but normally it's not. You don't have to solely give it to that unit. I will definitely tell you the 2 main call targets that you will always be returning back for is either a Leaping Geargo or the Upstream Dragon. Why? Because both of these do pretty much have 2 separate roles. This one is primarily for heavy pressuring. This one is primarily for ending the game with more resource. Well, ending the turn with more resource. So on my first one, I primarily go for this just to have more resource in hand from what my turn produced. And then every other sequence turn after that, we just keep going into Upstream Dragon to just keep pressuring and keep hitting them in the face until we're done. And then last but not least, out of the G Zone, we play the Godfather in our Evolved state, 4 copies of Chrono Dragon Next Stage. So for Next Stage, his requirement is we do have to discard a Chronojet Dragon from our hand for us to be able to stride into him, which isn't a problem. We do have ways of searching it, and with the draw this deck now provides, you will always end up having Chronojet in your hand. And 2 stride into this. Then it has the ability, at the end of the attack, at the end of the battle, this attack, you may counterblast 1, discard 2 cards from your hand, and re-ride into Chronojet Dragon standing. Now, why this is good is because this is a 1-2 punch. This now turns into, you go Next Stage first, this swings, you get to triple drive. Now, whatever your triple drive reveals, if you have a booster behind him, you can primarily give the boost, all the power to the booster, or share the love with your front row rear guards. Then at the end of this attack, it disappears. You go into Chronojet. Now, Chronojet, once again, for you guys who don't remember, has a guard restrict. So after all that effort of stopping a stride unit, now you have to be concerned with the guard restrict here. Now, if you didn't guard properly, this is going to be more of a nuisance, especially because by this point, you will most likely have 3 or more units in the G Zone face up. And that's just going to cause problems. So that's about 20 to 25k to your front row. And now you're dealing with those 2 front row rear guard supports that also have possible possible triggers on top of, or skills to help extend the turn more. It just gets crazy. I will definitely tell you, a lot of times I try my best to have my end board look like this, but with the next stage where I have these two on front row, just because they can attack more heavy on the opponent. Or sometimes I'll switch out one of the times I primarily just swing this way, because at the end of everything, this allows me to keep pressure on and just keep going. This happening after you've next stage, which allows your next stage to stay at full strength, boosting and on his swing, which is perfectly fine because you give the power to the front rows. One of my biggest targets for the booster is either Clockwise himself or calling a swirler behind Chronojet off of upstream, just to give more support in the overall game. But this has been the deck, guys. I do hope you like it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our videos. Tell us if you enjoyed the decks, what other deck lists you want to see. I am prepared. I do plan to do a deck list of the glass deck from set 3, because it actually is pretty interesting to me. I'm actually kind of excited to play that, as well as there may be an update to Jet, but I also will have one of my friends do a silhouette deck list with us as well, and get that out to you guys as well. This is probably going to be one of the other videos, and I also do hope you guys are enjoying the shorts from our fights. Those have been actually really fun doing. And yeah, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next video. And guys, your support has been greatly appreciated. For all you guys who are subscribing to the channel, watching the videos, I know 99% of you guys actually aren't subscribed. So for those guys who are continuous watchers, please don't forget to subscribe. The subscriptions definitely help. We are in our route to 200 subscribers, and I want to see us make it to 1,000. So once again, thank you guys for all your support, all the love, and everything else. This has been Royal Mech, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.